Welcome to you all. A hearty welcome to talks on Qtime learning. Today's talk is a second in the series of talks I am giving on Qtime learning. The first one I gave was about introduction to Qtime, what it is. We learnt about the Qtime steps and Qtime dimensions. So we are going to get into more of Qtime learning through dimensions and through steps. So what are they? So just to give a brief recap on what happened in the first lecture, the Qtime learning is a new way of learning. It's very briefly, it is away from your implicit way of learning, enter and exit, away from all the learning mindset we have since the 1940s and 1930s. So, and we are going to get into the mindset that learning is continuous and cyclical, and also get into the mindset that we're not going to have any kind of starting point. You can start anywhere. So these are the kind of concepts of Qtime learning. So we are going to achieve a completeness in learning and believing in the fact that the knowledge is one. And the knowledge is, again, has got two sides to it. The knowledge has got one side the facts that you acquire, and the other side the skills you acquire. And this knowledge is have a concept, a new thinking, bound and unbound. So we have a bounded knowledge that we live and act on a daily basis. We have unbound knowledge which we have to pursue, to acquire. And this knowledge over a period of time expands and shrinks. So this concept of learning is a complete paradigm shift from the old way of learning. We have this learning in different dimensions too, and learning quadrants and taking Qtime steps into learning. So our main aspect of this, our main Qtime learning push is there is no class difference as educated, uneducated. So once you have a Qtime learning, there's only one class, educated class, and it's the entire human race. So we have right now many different class systems. One of them is educated class and uneducated class. But we are going to go into totally a new concept. Through Qtime learning, there's only one class for the entire one human race, which is educated class. And this learning is scalable. It is not limited to individuals. It can be learned by the institutions, organizations, societies, nations, the whole world. So the learning Qtime has got these quadrants of Qtime. We have got trust, innovation, effort, and methods. These are the four quadrants. They are dimensions themselves, and they keep expanding and shrinking as your knowledge expands and shrinks. And these individual dimensions also they have quadrants. So the learning in four dimensions involves learning with Qtime steps. So what are those Qtime steps? We talked about acquiring, begin, connect, and discover. So like ABCD steps. And then we went through the concept of ABCD steps through the dimensions. These things were talked about in the very first lecture, the first talk I gave. So today we are going to explore more into what these dimensions are. What these dimensions are and what these dimensions kind of elaborate on learning. How do they help us learn? So, but the concept you have to learn in dimensions, you have a driving dimensions and driven dimensions. Some dimensions of learning drive what happens or what kind of learning takes place in other dimensions. So we talked about trust and innovation are drivers, and effort and method dimensions are like your car being driven. So when you have a learning in trust and innovation dimensions, that learning drives what kind of methods that you use and what kind of effort is needed. So the most of the dimensions, they have their own core value. I call it tenets. Core value means what do they really signify? A tenet is for a trust, it is a sway dimension. Depending on the trust, low trust, you have one way of thinking. With high level of trust, you have another way of thinking. When the trust level changes, you sway. Oh yeah, this way or that way. So the tenet of this trust dimension is a swaying dimension, we call it. So in nutshell, the concepts of Qtime learning, I'm going through these slides very quickly because these were covered in the very first talk. So the concept of Qtime education revolves around learning about quadrants, learning in multiple dimensions, learning the steps, learning about what those driving and driven dimensions are, and what those tenets of those learning dimensions and how they influence. So we have today's talk about trust dimension. So when you have a high trust, high level of trust, you have innovation taking place there, and the efforts are going to be much less, and the methods need not be highly regulatory. It is not controlled by policies. It is continuous, it is generating, it is discovering itself over a period of time. So the effort learning dimensions and method learning dimensions are going to be affected by the level of trust that is there. So today's talk centers around a Qtime learning, a way of learning in trust dimension. So what do you learn in trust dimension? What is there to learn? So trust is, you should know, it's a very fragile thing, and also it's very strong. It is a very unique in so that respect. When the trust is strong, the bonds are strong. When the trust is weak or broken, it's very fragile, it takes a lot of time to build. So we have to understand that part. That is the essence of trust. And there is also situations where you have low trust and a high trust. You should learn to recognize that. How do you do that? So the trust levels at any level, doesn't matter whether individual levels, group levels, at organization levels, at societies levels, at nation levels, trust is there at some level. You should be able to recognize that. So we have and we have to have an understanding of trust, how it works. The trust is more dependent on the kind of process is there, is in place. So when the process is tightly knit and tightly followed, that promotes high level of trust. When the processes are loose and not really followed, the level of trust comes down. So but the level of trust depends on where it is located. So this one concept of trust is very important. This concept is very important in 21st century education, because nowadays everybody carries mobile phones. They have got thousands of apps, and all those apps sometimes are created for your use, but they are driven by the society values, but they are limited only by the imagination of those people who create them, and they become as integrated as the technology that we are using today. So the apps and technology, they become one. So the society values, they carry a certain level of trust. So we should be cognizant of that. And nowadays, with all the internet, with all the Facebook available all over the place, LinkedIn, you can connect anywhere to anyone anywhere in the world. So geographical boundaries that we see or we perceive, they become valueless, and they open doors for cultural assimilation of vast diversity. We think that this is our culture, but when you open up and connect to a person far away from where you are, the culture or the cultural diversity that you see there is so different from yours. You will start understanding the differences between the two cultures and start assimilating that, and that becomes a norm. Those boundaries will become valueless, and education becomes part of the landscape and unidentifiable anymore as education. So these are the things that we have to think in terms of 21st century education. It's important. So the trust dimension does have some influence how the education is imparted, the methods and efforts that are being implemented because of that values that we learn through trust dimension. But the trust dimension, as I said, the Qtime way is learning in quadrants. So what are those quadrants of trust dimension? So the trust dimension have got several quadrants. As part of the trust concept, before getting into the quadrants part of it, we should learn also that when there's a high level of trust, the cost of doing anything, implementing or learning or whatever, is going to come down. On the levels of when the trust are high, the speed with which the things happen going to increase. So there is the basic notion of a trust dimension learning. So when the high level of trust, the cost is going to come down, and this high level of trust, the speed with which you implement going to come down too. So the first quadrant of the trust dimension is self-trust. What is it? So we talk about self-trust. Oh, you have to have a self-confidence. You have to have trust in yourself. But have you ever seen who are you really? Have you looked at yourself from outside? You don't do that. So you have to know who you are to really have a learning capability in self-trust. So the self-trust goes through different steps. Self-trust has to come from self-awareness. Who are you? So the concept of who are you revolves around your knowledge, your behaviors, your skills, and your preferences and your values that you have attached to yourself, and that becomes your character. Some of these characters lead to some kind of habits that stay with you for longer time. That's why they call habits. And these habits promote certain kind of actions from you, certain kind of thoughts that are going to be behind those actions are going to be evident when you have that self-trust. So the self-trust is going to be amplified, I should say, or go in the right direction when there is right learning. Are you with me on that? So the right learning and the right education are the foundation stones to create this self-trust. So self-trust is not going to be taught in schools or in colleges. It has to be learnt by you, by looking at yourself, creating a relationship of a value that you attach to it, and that preferences you attach to it, the characters that you attach to it, and then you know who you are. So once you know who you are, the trust within you that you are capable of doing this or that, or if you have to do certain things that you are not capable of, what you need to acquire will become so clear. The clarity of thought that they are provided by the self-trust is going to propel you to a different kind of learning. So the learning dimension has to happen starting at the self-trust level. So the first very quadrant of the trust dimension is self-trust, and once you learn what it is, then your capabilities will get amplified. So here the self-trust is, how do you know what kind of self-trust you possess? So this is a source from a book called Speed of Trust by Stephen M. R. Covey. So this is a fantastic book that you must read at some point in time. He talks about the credibility that you build for others to see and for yourself. So the integrity of a person is a gap between the intent and the behavior. What you intend to do is shown in the behavior of yours. So then the integrity of you as a person increases. But what is intent? So intent is driven by the motive, a reason to do something. So the motive, a reason to do something, and creates an agenda. Agenda is an action plan. So your behavior is dependent on the motive and the agenda that you have created for yourself. So that evolves into intent. So your credibility as a person increases once there is the gap between the intent and behavior reduces, and your motive and agenda, they stay together as the intent that you are going to be shown through your behaviors. And because of that you will start to understand the dimensions of your capability as a person. So self-trust is a person. You as a person looking at yourself and trying to understand what you are capable of. So looking at your capability, the acronym is called tasks that you are tasked with. It stands for talent, attitude, skill, knowledge, and style. All that together. Style is also important. It is, once you have a talent and attitude and skill and knowledge, what separates you from other? The style with which you approach to handle any situation or face any situation. And in that process, you are going to achieve some results. Those results are important. What results are you going to obtain? And how are you going to obtain it? So these two are the very interesting concepts. Results are okay, but what results are you going to achieve, are you going to obtain? And how are you going to obtain it? They are going to create the personality of you. So the person differs from other person because of this nature, that the method they followed to obtain the results and what results are being obtained. So once you have a person, actually defines a persona, which it basically stands for wearing a mask. Wearing a different mask, it becomes a different person. So it is, celebrities do that. They play out the roles as different persons. So you have to have that personality to show who you are, and the methods or how you go and do about this or your integrity, the intent, your capabilities, and the results you obtain. So that once you master the self-trust, once you are into the zone, once you are understand, oh, this is what I can do, this is I cannot do, whatever I can do, this is the best, this is my strength, and that's my weakness. I have to accentuate my strength. I have to hide my weakness, or I have to get trained on the weakness. Then you know how you can contribute in a group. So each and every person in the group has that self-trust in himself or herself. The group is going to have a synergy. Why? Because they would know how to demonstrate respect to each other. They value the other person's capabilities. They know the person is good in this, but not so good in that, but I am good in that, so I can contribute. But the very capable person in a certain aspects, they contribute to the strength of the group, and that is respected by the group members. So once that happens, the group trust increases. And once you know your strengths and once you know your weaknesses, you can accentuate your strengths, and that creates transparency. So once you create transparency in the group, hey, this is what I am capable of doing. You don't know hiding anymore. This is what I can do. This I am good at. It creates transparency. People know what I can get out of you. And you are going to deliver results because you know what results you can deliver and how you can deliver it, because you have a stepping stone of your self-trust. So you are going to, because of the self-trust, you are going to face obstacles with boldness, with no fear. You can confront reality. There is no self-denial anymore. You know the reality that exists as of today, as of now, at this moment, and you are ready to confront, not run away from it. Because you know, as a group, I am a person, I can do this, he or she as a person can do that. Together, we can confront this and get it done over with. Why? Because you respect each other, you create a transparency there, you know how to deliver results. Reality is no problems. We can, any kind of situations, you understand the reality of the situation and face it. And you expect what can happen. So your expectation levels is very clear. There is a clarity of expectation from each member of the group. And each person is going to be accountable what he or she says. Accountability is one of those things which is different from responsibility. You are assigned responsibility, but once you accept responsibility, you are become accountable for that. So once you assume responsibility, you are accountable, and you have to practice accountability. So for that, you have to listen first to other group members to understand what they are trying to say. So provide your own opinions after. And once you commit to certain level of expectation or certain things expected from you, you keep the commitments. And with that, your group has entrusted itself to the highest level of group trust. People can see from outside. They say, I can trust the team. The team delivers. The team knows how to deliver. Team can confront reality. I can expect a lot of things from the team. You know what happens because of that? You extend trust outwards. People from outside see you as a group that performs. And what happens? They would like to enter into partnership with you. Can you come and help us out? So you start building partnerships. What happens partnerships? The very basis of any kind of organization formation earlier is a partnership. So over a period of time, it evolved into organizations of different kind. So the organizations then started getting governed by the company's executive members, chief executive officers, operating officers, and so the companies, that organizations that you see today, they can perform the highest level if the groups or departments within that can perform at higher level. And these are the basic foundation that we have to lay to make that happen. But once you have organization, you have a lot of things that come into play. So imagine your the basic levels of group trust that organization can kind of depend on you. There are training institutions. They train dancers at highest level, peak performance. Ice skating rings are most dangerous, which is you have to have a lot of skills to really balance yourself on those thin skates. And imagine that with another person doing the dance with you or skating with you. A lot of lifts and falls happen. The person does trust each other because they know I can trust this person that he can do the lifts, and the person has the strength to do that, and he has got a sense of timing. So as a small group of two individuals, the level of trust with each other reaches the peak, and when that happens, they perform, and the performance is rewarded through medals. A recognition of the performance, or the highest level of performance, is through other rewards. There is another thing, observations I have to find out. There is cells, one of those groups in England areas. They think that anamkara, it's a word they use. It is two souls connected. It is not two persons connected, two souls connected. And the bond that when they connected like that, the bond multiplies and magnifies, and the potential for growth and prosperity is unimaginable. And there's another thing called active listening, which is focusing on fears and aspirations and hopes and needs. Every time when a person speaks, you have to focus on these things. This is called fun. Focus on fun. The fears that they expect, the aspirations they have, the hopes that they are going to create, and the needs that they have. So if you look at on these four characteristics when someone speaks, this is going to be active listening, and that is going to form the bond. And at some point in time, over the passage of time, many people can forget the impact of poor quality of a product or a service, and the poor execution of a project, and the mismanagement and all that. But one single thing will not be tolerated. A stinging impact of deception will stay forever. That's a broken trust. So fragile. It kind of amplifies or magnifies in a person's life over a period of time. So the deception is the worst thing when it compared to poor quality of production, or a mismanagement, or a badly executed project and all that. They get forgotten over a period of time, but this deception won't. So the highest level of group trust comes only when there is lowest level of deception among but whatever the task they are given, it is performed at the highest level. So the groups, when they form together as partners and they extend themselves, they form organizations. So a self-trust going into the group as a group trust, and that going into organization as a trust of a different kind. At each level, the trust levels are different and the kind of trust they are different. So when you have organizations where groups of groups are together performing a task that organization is entrusted with, the kind of trust and the level of trust will be different. So this is the third quadrant, a learning quadrant of the trust dimension. The first learning quadrant is self-trust. The second learning quadrant is group trust. And the third important learning quadrant is the organization trust. So how do the organizations are viewed? How are they going to be viewed from outside, from the people who deal with it, from other societies that they are part of, and the nations that across the boundaries of the countries? How can they trust an organization which are miles away? How do they trust it? How does it work? So organizations have two phases, one internal and another external. So what happens internally has to be highest level to really show the highest level of trust to outsiders. So internal systems, internal groups, the interactions of the groups, how you build the organizations from bottom up, they have to be aligned. They have to be aligned in such a way to promote trust within and among the groups. That has to happen first. Once that happens, it is similar to you yourself having a trust within you. The organization will have trust within the group departments that it has formed. But it has to form a trust bond within the departments too. So once we have a basic understanding of self-trust, a learning in self-trust and the group trust, the organization will work with these groups, and the task of organization to build a structure to deliver a product or a service to outsiders at the highest level of trust becomes much easier. So what has to be done to deliver the products or services at the highest level? It is not a very difficult task to do. Many companies have done that. They have built a brand or a reputation as a good company. They are globally known, globally respected, globally valued. They carry a brand name. Oh, if I buy something at Amazon is a internet retail market, provides 1,000 different kinds of products all over the world. They have Amazon in US, Amazon in India, Amazon in Australia. That word Amazon itself carries the trust that if I order a particular item from this retailer, I know I can get it without fail of certain quality. How they have done it? How have they done it? They have built reviews of users against each product for the users to decide whether the product should be bought or not. That's the first level of trust they have gained. So that is a framework, an alignment which is built within the Amazon that created that user reviews. Critical reviews is fine. What the product company says is fine, but what users use, how they have used it, how they have perceived it, their opinions are also important. So they have published that as part of the product. So other users look at it. They form an opinion of their own, and the level of trust in the product goes up or goes down depending on what users say, independent of what product manufacturers say. So highly valued product stays longer on Amazon shelves, other they disappear very soon. So Amazon itself created this trust level that they are the markets for a very trustworthy products of highest level. They created systems within the company to deliver that. They built the reputation and they built the brand name. So let's look at these organizations which are low trust. What really happens there? So yes, Amazon is a highly trusted company because they have got a lot of systems in place. But what are the problems or the things that we see at organizations with low trust? Why does it happen? Because people manipulate or distort facts. See, that's where it starts. Or people withhold information or hoard information. They don't want to, they know something, they don't want to share it. And if you ask for information, they withhold some part of it because they don't trust you. And for whatever you do, getting the credit is the most important thing for you. You don't think in terms of the group getting credit. You don't think of the organization getting the credit for what you do. It is important, it becomes important for you to get the credit. So these are the characteristics of low trust organizations. And people spin the truth to their advantage. And the new ideas, if somebody comes, oh no, that may not work, let us not. Why do you want to change something? If it's not broken, why do you want to fix it? Kind of attitude. They don't welcome new ideas, or they stifle the whole process of creating new ideas. Some mistakes, they get covered up, or they covered over. And most of the people are involved daily in a blame game and bad mouthing others. They just don't know. Someone else also may be bad mouthing them, but they don't care. So here you see, if you walk into any organization and if you see these things happening, then you know the level of trust within the organization is at a very low level as compared to organizations with high trust. And what do you see there? Information is shared openly because they know the information is important for organization to grow, and if organization grows, they grow. So what they're looking at is the growth. So the information is shared openly, and some mistakes are tolerated because they know it could be a weakness. It could be out of the weakness of the person or the weakness of the group. They are tolerated, and they find some way to make them learn. They encourage learning, and the culture is innovative and creative. If the solution is there already, they want to know, is there a better solution? They always think of time saved is time invested, and people are loyal to those who are absent, in the sense that that they have a reason for being not there for some reason, and just because the person is absent there, that his work is not absent. The work done up to the stage is not absent, and they are loyal to the work, and people talk straight and confront real issues because the group has got that respect within the group members, and there's a real communication and collaboration. There's no competition. So you look at the low trust, look at the high trust. So when the information is shared openly, innovation and creation innovation and the creativity is promoted, the level of trust in the organization increases. And once that happens, the organization starts performing. So once you have the organization performing at the highest level possible. So organizations, you should know that they are part of a environment or a society they are in, and they contribute to the society in many respects. They contribute to the wealth of the society, and they contribute to the values of the society and what they stand for. Society is a complex composition of individuals of different kinds, cultures of different kind, organizations of different kind, and they also work under the regulatory or monetary policies of the governments and non-governments. The society is a very complex entity, but it also has a kind of trust and a level of trust. So kind of trust the society has got and the level of trust the society has got dependent on the composition of the society and the levels of trust they have. So how does a society trust increases? So when you contribute to the society that supports the values and the preferences of its members, the level of trust, the trust in the society increases. Many of the companies within that, they have a concept of intentional virtue with which they operate. One of the virtue is like corporate social responsibility. As a corporate entity within the society, what that corporation should do to the members of the society is important, and the corporations recognize that. Once they recognize that, they have a responsibility they assume, and they become accountable for that, and the corporate social responsibility becomes part of their activity and a daily activity that they are cognizant of, and they will be contributing to the society that they are in through that channel. So once that happens, the trust in the society amongst the members of all levels, different kinds, increases. So the way that society can show that it is a well knit society that can promote its culture, promote the wealth of its members, promote the values of its members, and the way that it is promoted and achieved becomes the societal trust that people see from outside. You can see many times we see that in Gujarat we have Marwadis society kind of thing. It's not society, the kind of a what do you call that, people who are involved in business, and the way they do their business is different from others. They have a strong bond within themselves, and they understand the values, they understand the level of respect that they carry within the society, and they become the extraordinary businessmen, not only in India, around the world. So that they kind of promote a global citizenship because of that. These things happen only when we have to move away from a acquisition of materials or a materialistic view of the society or the nation or the world. You have to move away from that, and we have to think in terms of what is sustainable by the society. I'll give you an example. A society cannot sustain the plastic bag garbage. because there is no way that it can process the plastic bags in some responsible way to dispose it off. It cannot do that because it doesn't have the capability. So then what happens? So society has to go into a sustainable mode. Okay, let us not use plastic bags, let us use paper bags, because we know how to dispose paper bags. Then what should happen? The members of the society should promote that sustainable action of the society. Okay, maybe the plastic bags may carry a different kind of value to it. No, you want to have plastic bags because it is easy, it lasts for long and all those things. And no, the materialistic aspect of the plastic bag has to move away from sustainable fact, okay, that the paper bag is needed, because society cannot process that. Unless you have a mechanism in place to process the plastic bags in a responsible way, avoid using plastic bags or stop using plastic bags. So you have moved away from a materialistic view of a society to a sustainable view of society. So when these things happen, automatically the society promotes a global citizenship that is valued, respected, recognized and adopted not only in the nation or around the world. That is a societal trust of highest level when you reach the global citizenship or recognition of the same. So the values that we attach at each level, the individual levels, the group levels, the society organization level, the society levels, they all combine together to establish a identifiable, quantifiable entity which I called trusted professionalism. So the main reason for that, or a main support that you get in the end, is from the society itself. So the principles of contribution has to be understood. The contribution is not only meant for generating wealth, but generating the value system that people respect, and also thinking in terms of how a environment of trusted environment of a society, okay, reduces regulatory policies, increases self-regulation. So that part is also to be understood to really promote a trusted professionalism. There are costs and benefits from all that. You have to understand those aspects of implementing certain things. Okay, so this is a very serious subject. We talk about trust very loosely nowadays. Everywhere, okay, I don't have trust in that. I don't trust it. But we have to have this a process of learning in trust dimension, which contains these learning quadrants that we should be aware of and what they stand for, how we can build all that, the trust from bottom up, to really establish a trusted professionalism from each and every entity, individual, group, organization and society. When that happens, the wealth generation becomes automatic. The values, the traditions, the preferences of the society of that becomes noble and promotes a global recognition, which is what everyone wants. And like we have to have certain aspects of trust that come out of not only the knowledge that society possesses, it also the skills that society possesses. I told you the knowledge has two sides. The one is knowledge is facts, what you know, what is the truth. And the other side of the knowledge is skills. So how these facts are used, how this knowledge is used to reskill tools for future, to develop skills for future, to transform skills for future. So the concept of the knowledge has to be extended to skills too. So knowledge is time bound, not time bound. It can last forever. Whether you have a knowledge that something is what I know can stay with you till you die, but some of the skills you possess cannot, because over a period of time those skills may be of no value, or maybe you may not be able to perform because of your physical limitations that you acquire as you grow old. So we have to look into terms of knowledge and skill as two separate things, and then look them together as two sides of a coin, and then try to establish the trust environment required as a professional to establish the professional trust. So we can, I don't want to go through all this concept of the society trust, but there is one important thing I need to really touch upon. So your predisposition to trust, or propensity to trust, and how you analyze the trust levels, your capacity to analyze, they really have a lot of impact in what you do and how you behave, what you can do, what you cannot do. So if you are a person and you kind of trust everyone, you don't have any disposition of any kind of trust, and you're not capable of analyzing what kind of trust it is, because you have not learned about this trust matter. It's like almost we call it blind trust. Okay, so when you have a blind trust, your indecision is much higher, because you don't know whether to trust the person or not, and you're not capable of analyzing what kind of trust the person has got. You are indecisive. But look at the other way around. So your disposition, you trust everybody blindly, but you are able to analyze also. But then what happens? Because you do not trust, you become suspicious. So your suspicion levels are higher, because why? You are capable of analyzing what they are, but you also have this blind trust. So your trust concept is not that matured, because you have not learned much about the trust. So then what happens? Okay, your suspicion, you're suspicious everybody. But what if you are highly disposed to trust? Okay, so you trust almost everyone to the highest level, but you cannot analyze what kind of trust it is. You are not capable of analyzing the situations the trust brings in front of you. Then you become gullible, because you trust everyone to the highest level and you are not capable of analyzing it, what kind of trust it is. So, but if at some point in time, through this Qtime learning, you learn the trust dimension through its quadrants of learning, so you not only become highly trusted, or you can also trust high levels, that when you see one, you also become capable of analyzing with the high level. So what happens then? The high level of trust and high level of analysis that you can do, you become more judgmental. You can judge things very well. So it's important to reach that level. So you're able to judge in a way that is not destructive but constructive. So that is only possible when you know or when you learn the components of the trust dimension through the Qtime. So I already talked about the Qtime steps in the first talk. Acquire, benchmark, connect, and discover. So these 4 steps are necessary to really go through this learning in trust dimension in every quadrant. You have to follow those steps, but you don't need to really follow them in the order I mentioned. As I said, there is no starting point. But once you start the cycle of learning, however small it is, you can continue the cyclical process, expand it. So your capabilities, your potential to grow, your level of contribution, what you can do, what you cannot do, how to accentuate your strengths, how to hide the weakness, all that will become visible, all that will become recognized at the highest level possible, and you will end up in promoting a constructive contributions to the society. So we talked about the establishing a trusted professionalism and how it is possible, going through the steps of self-trust, group trust, and then to the organization, and then the society, and then you create that trusted professionalism. It is going to be emanating only not from individuals, it will be emanating from the organizations, from the groups, from the society itself, on the kind of professionalism that is coming out of that learning is what is needed for prosperity, wealth generation, promoting the values and the traditions and culture. So as part of the Qtime learning, this is a very small part. This is one of the part that you learn first, because this is the driving dimension of Qtime. The driving dimension means how you learn, what you learn is going to impact the learning other dimensions. So I call, there are 2 driving dimensions are there. Okay, trust and innovation. So the trust is going to establish a trusted professionalism, and the innovation dimension is going to establish innovation proficiency, and they drive the methods maturity and the efforts efficiency. But what come what may, you have to know this. People follow trust, good or bad. If they know it is good, it is good. If they know it is bad, it could happen bad. See, I can example of bad groups. That many things happen. Many things like you have a very predominant 20th century finished, 21st century is starting. What is happening is kind of bad elements in the society increasing, and the trust is still followed there. It has given way into terrorism, that of unknown magnitude. Why? Because the concepts are not properly understood. Every culture, every society has a preference and a value system, and if it is improperly understood or improperly transmitted to others, it can follow a bad trust. But if it is properly transmitted, it has a good trust built into that. A low trust levels at any stage will get into bad trust situation, the high level of trust in any situation, doesn't matter whether it's going to be from an individual or a organization or a society or a group, that is going to promote a good trust. So the people follow trust, good or bad. So what do you really want? What do we really want? We want them to follow good trust. So that is where we have this concept of trust dimension learning or Qtime learning, and I thank you for listening to me on this important dimension of a Qtime. This is the second talk in the series of talks I am giving, and the next talk will be on the innovation dimension. Thank you.